Hi guys, so today we're going to be making dinner together. So we're going to make fried chicken, roasted squash, spinach, and cranberry sauce. So let's get started. So we're going to start off with our drumsticks. These are 6 drumsticks that I'm going to use today, and I've already washed them in vinegar and lemon juice. I just ran them under water and put the lemon juice in the vinegar and just rubbed it around until they were clean. And now we're going to season them. And I'm going to season them with the spices that I have on hand. I'm going to use salt, pepper, red pepper flakes, paprika, onion powder, and garlic powder. But you don't have to use these spices. You can use whatever you have. But I would just definitely add the salt, pepper, and then add a little bit of anything else that you have in your cupboard. If you feel a little bit apprehensive of seasoning the chicken, just put all the seasonings that you're going to use in a small bowl, give it a taste, and if it tastes good to you, then add it to the chicken. That way you can adjust it to see if you need maybe more salt, more pepper, or whatever you might need. And you can really use any seasoning that you have in the kitchen, like Cajun seasoning, fajita seasoning, really anything. It's just going to be something to give the chicken a little bit more flavor. But salt and pepper is fine too. And once we have all of our seasonings, we can now rub that into the chicken. And we're just going to rub that and make sure that it's evenly coated. And once that part's all set, we're going to get our marinade ready. And this is what we're going to use to marinate the chicken and help it to be more tender. So we're going to use whole milk, or you can use any milk really. This is just the milk that I had on hand. So I'm going to use whole milk, and then I'm going to use a couple dashes of hot sauce. And those two together are going to help break down the protein of the chicken and help it to be more tender. But if you don't want any hot sauce, you can add maybe like a tablespoon of vinegar, and that will help do the same thing. But the hot sauce won't make it spicy. It will just kind of break down the proteins of the meat. You won't really taste the heat. So we'll give that a good stir, and we'll place our chicken right inside our milk mixture. And we're going to let that sit in the refrigerator covered for about 20 minutes to an hour. And that's just going to be our little extra insurance to make sure our chicken doesn't dry out and stays nice and moist as we fry it. Remember to wash your hands at every step so we don't spread any salmonella. And now we'll get started on some of our sides. And we're going to start off with acorn squash. We're going to be roasting it. So I'm just going to cut it in half. And as you can see here, I started with a big chef's knife, thinking that the weight of the knife would be enough, but it couldn't grip that tough outer skin. So I switched it to a sharp serrated knife so that the little jagged edges could grip that tough outer layer skin. So you just want to be very careful and take your time. I really wish I had actually a heavier knife. That would make it even easier. But this worked fine. And then I'm going to take a fork and I'm going to take out all the seeds. And I'm going to discard those. But if you wanted to, you could just roast them up in the oven. And that would be good too. But I'm just going to discard them for today. And once I have both sides cleaned out, I'm going to cover it with about a tablespoon of olive oil for each half. And then I'm going to season it with a little bit of sea salt and cinnamon. The salt will help bring out the natural flavors of the acorn squash, and the cinnamon will add a nice warmth and kind of play on that kind of fall time flavor. So once I have all my spices added and my oil, I'm going to rub that in on both sides, the front and the back, even on the skin too. And that's just going to help so that the skin doesn't dry out in the oven. And you could do butternut squash in the same way. The oil, cutting it in half, taking the seeds out, and then seasoning with the oil and the salt and the cinnamon. And then I'm going to just do little pricks in the skin of the squash. This is going to help so that it doesn't bust in the oven and just help it to kind of cook more evenly. So I'm going to add that to a 400-degree oven for about 20 minutes, and when it comes out, it will be golden and delicious, like you see here. And now we can work on our cranberry sauce. This is actually going to be a cranberry applesauce, and I'm using a green apple. I'm just going to slice it, peel it, and cut it into chunks. And you want it to be smaller than the size of the cranberries. And the reason why I'm using apple and green apple in particular is because it's going to help to naturally thicken our cranberry sauce. Green apple has something in it called pectin, and pectin will actually help to thicken our sauce without adding any like cornstarch or flour. It's a natural thickener, and it will also add a nice sweetness to our cranberry sauce. And to add even more sweetness and kind of a nice citrusy flavor, I'm going to squeeze in 2 clementines. If you have an orange, that's even better, or it works about the same. So I just had clementines or tangerines on hand, so I just used those. And then I'm going to put in about 1 cup of frozen cranberries. You can use fresh if you have it, but I just had frozen. And I'm going to put that on a stove and let that cook on low heat for about 15 to 20 minutes until all the cranberries have burst. And then I'm going to remove the orange and just give it a good stir, and you're left with this sweet and tart cranberry sauce that you see here. So now we can get started on our spinach. So I'm sauteing here a little bit of onion inside of some olive oil, and then I'm going to add a little bit of garlic, and I'm going to saute that until it's tender. Just about a couple minutes, just until it's tender. And then I'm going to add a little bit of pepper flakes like you see here, and that's just going to add a little bit of spice. But if you don't like it, you can leave that out. It's definitely optional. So I'm just going to saute that up, and once it's nice and fragrant, I'm going to add in our frozen spinach. And you can definitely use fresh, but I had frozen on hand, so that's what I'm going to be using today. So I'm going to mix that up and make sure that everything is nicely incorporated. And once the spinach is nice and cooked through, it should be nice and bright and have a beautiful garlicky, oniony smell. And you can give it a taste and see if you need to add more salt and pepper. And there you have it, a quick sauteed spinach. And now we can get started on our chicken. So I've taken about 1.5 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of pepper. And I've added it to the flour inside of a Ziploc bag. And I'm going to add 1 or 2 chickens at a time into the bag, depending on the size of the bag. And I'm going to shake that around until it's fully coated. And you might be wondering why we added salt and pepper to the flour when the chicken is already seasoned. Well, the chicken is seasoned, but the flour is not. So we just want to make sure that everything is seasoned along the way. So the salt and pepper is to help season the flour. And once all of our chicken is coated, we're going to add enough oil to a 10-inch pan for it to be about 1 inch above, like 1 inch high. And I'm using about 2 cups of oil. And once that's hot enough where I can stick a wooden spoon in and it starts to boil or bubble around it on medium-high heat, I'm going to add in my chicken. If you have some kind of thermometer, that's even better. You want it to be about 375. And I like my chicken cooked hard or cooked dry and dark. So you can put it between 350 and 375. I don't have a thermometer at the time. Mine's actually ran out of battery, so I have to get a new one. But that trick with the spoon, putting the wooden spoon in and just seeing the bubbles around the edges, is a pretty good indicator that the oil is hot enough for the chicken to go in. And you just want to make sure once you place the chicken inside the pan that it has enough space and it's not overcrowded so that it can cook nice and even. And once you've cooked that on the first side for about 15 to 20 minutes, you're going to flip that over. And kind of a funny story, when I first cooked fried chicken and I saw that it started to bleed, I thought something was wrong with the chicken. This is when I first cooked it a long time ago. And I actually took it off the pan and waited till my mom came home and told her that I think something's wrong with this chicken. It's starting to bleed. And she said, no, that's okay. It's supposed to do that. And luckily she didn't come home probably about 5 or 10 minutes after I turned off the chicken. So I just turned it right back on and cooked it all the way through. So if you see it bleeding, that's normal. And about 15 to 20 minutes later, after it cooks on the other side, you'll have this beautiful golden fried chicken. And now you have your dinner all ready and prepared for your family. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, bye-bye.